There is only one presence and one power active in me and throughout the universe. God the good, omnipotent.
Many years ago, the story goes, an Italian artist was commissioned to paint the Last Supper, the 12 disciples in the Christ. He scoured the entire neighborhood for appropriate models and soon had uncovered a ruddy, burly sort of fellow with flowing hair to portray Peter. It's just a rough-looking character, but with a sweetness of spirit. And next he ran across an ascetic-looking youth with a brooding mouth and questioning eyes, and he chose him to be the doubting Thomas. Sort of an intellectual type, you know, who didn't believe anything anyhow. Then he found an eager, outgoing type of man who became Andrew. And finally, a young man with features of sensitive nobility was picked to sit for Christ. And before the month was out, the painter had secured models for all 12 of the disciples, save one. Try as he would, he could not find a model suitable for the part of Judas Iscariot. And as a result, a very important part of the canvas had to remain unfinished. And of course, without the demonic personality of Judas, the canvas lost its impact. And for several years it went unfinished, and wherever the artist went, unconsciously he was searching for that last character who could make the canvas complete, the man who sold his Lord for 30 pieces of silver. And at last, several years later, he found him in a cheap bar, half drunk, leaning over a table. You could tell that his life had just come unglued, it had come apart. You could see the self-indulgence, the anger, the resentment that was in his face. His mouth was weak and cynical, and he might have been Judas in the very flesh, but he was unimpressed with the opportunity to become a living part of that canvas, the Last Supper. He refused to do it until he was offered more money. And he finally accepted and sat for the next few weeks for the last finishing part of the canvas. On the last day, the model amazed the artist by suddenly bursting into tears. And between sobs, he asked this question, "You don't know me, do you?" And the artist said, "No, I'm afraid I don't." And the model said, "You never saw me before you picked me up in that day in the bar." He said, "Not to the best of my knowledge, I've never seen you before." And the man who sat for Judas said, "I am the man who once sat for your Christ." Do you think that the man who sat for Judas could be so resurrected as again be able to sit for Christ? Of course you do. Of course you do. We're here to be transformed. And that's the way life is. It's designed to awaken us from our sleep. Life is designed to cause us eventually to take charge of our thoughts and of our feelings, of our attitudes, and to reach beyond ourselves. Life is designed ultimately to bring us to the place of total surrender and to the experience of having to turn to a presence and a power greater than ourselves, asking not just for help, but to be changed.